Hi guys, welcome on our YouTube channel Sharing with People. Today we will try to do video in English and we will go back into what we started, which means we will be discussing how to use AI to automatically describe the video, YouTube video or whatever video you want to. In my case I'll be showing it on a YouTube video. So that you don't have to do the description, you don't have to do the translation, creation of timeline, creation of subtitles. Everything would be automated, and today we will start going deeply into it, so we will be using N8N. But before we start, let's just quickly discuss or describe what all the software we would be using. So first thing is definitely Docker desktop, because the majority of AI tools that we will be using can be launched inside Docker, and Docker itself, more precisely Docker desktop, is making it very easy to use them. Then another tool would be N8N. N8N is a simply tool that you can use to create and connect nodes. This connection represents the flow of data and the nodes are doing something. So you can, for example, call a large language model, or you, for example, can load some file from disk and so on. So it's simply trying to standardize the operations and give you these standard operations as nodes, and you can then connect them to control the flow of data. Then, which was also discussed during the last presentation, which was unfortunately in Czech language, so now it will be in English available to more people. We mentioned that we are using Baserow. Baserow is very similar to some Google Sheets, but it's a little more advanced. You can imagine it as a database, and then you can run inside Docker and then store the information that we will create using our automation, so that it's very easy to see the result, or for example, if our flow is interrupted, to continue it. Now, as we usually have to share some data, then another free tool which we will be using is called MinIO. MinIO is something that simply tries to mimic S3 AWS bucket, so we can then use it to share the information or data in between other applications, and it's make it pretty convenient because you can share it using the URL. And then the last thing that we will be using is super amazing No-Code Architects Toolkit, which is giving you the API to do many things with video or audio automatically through API, which means, do you need to save MP3 audio from video? Do you want to use FFmpeg remotely, and so on? This all is provided by NCA Toolkit, which is pretty amazing. Later we will also discuss how we can improve and optimize the NCA Toolkit. But for now, if you just download the basic version, which is using CPU for all the operations, it's more than enough. And with that said, that's more than enough for us to start. So this is how the full flow inside N8N looks like. So in case of N8N, there is more than sufficient documentation how to start it, and when you start it and you open N8N, so you can start simply dragging the blocks and connecting them. So I won't be going into total details here because we have more than enough to cover. I'll be at this point really covering just how to do this auto describe flow. What this auto describe flow can do for us before we start going over the particular blocks. So if we go into YouTube and I open my YouTube channel, and then I go into the videos, and then I open, for example, this one and zoom it in, then the YouTube automation is doing the name of the video, it's doing the description of the video, it's automatically doing these tags, support, it's also creating the timeline and sources. And all of that is automatically extracted from the video and audio itself. And then on top of that, it's also translating it into another language. So you can see that, for example, here it's translated into English and it's exactly the same. And it's also automatically creating the subtitles and uploading them into the YouTube. So you have English subtitles, and simultaneously with that we of course have also English subtitles, as Czech is my primary language. But in case of English it will be much more easier for many more people to follow, and because we have this automation, it will be then automatically translated into Czech language, even this video. And with that said, let's start describing the particular steps. Very likely we will have to do more than one video because it's pretty complex, and then we can get into even more complex creations that I did inside N8N. So let's start with step 1. So step 1 has 2 phases. The first phase, because we are using Google Gemini models, so the first step is to use built-in module to load from disk. So we simply use read-write files from disk and we load something from disk. In my case, I'm running inside Docker N8N on a different device. So I simply created shared folder there, and when I'm done with video, I just put the video there. And then when I trigger this flow, because inside N8N the flow has to be triggered, so when I trigger the flow, it looks like this. It simply creates for me this form, and I just populate the form. So I put the file name, then I select primary language, secondary language for it to be translated to. I select which model to use. In case of Gemini Flash it's much cheaper, in case of Pro it's much more expensive. Obviously Flash and Pro, they have some free usage which you can do through Google AI Studio, which by the way I forgot to mention. So in case of Google AI Studio, because we are using the Gemini models, you have to simply create new, or ideally create new Gmail account to have it separated from your primary. Then you go into Google AI Studio, you create an API key. And then in case of Gemini Flash, you have free 10 requests per minute and 500 requests per day. These are for free. There is also something free for Pro, but in case of Pro, you have like 5 requests, maybe 10 requests per day, and it's 1 or 2 requests per minute, so it's very limited. The Flash is free, so I mean, if you can use the Flash, and even regarding the prices, if it's possible, then we should prefer Flash. But if we want to have the highest quality, then obviously we can use Pro. So then you just get a API key and you created new Gmail account. We have that. Now let's jump back. So we were discussing models, and then in case of Gemini, if we want to create subtitles, we may want to directly upload sound, because if we just upload sound, not full video, then it may be easier for Gemini Flash to understand it. In case of Gemini 2.5 Pro, it's usually without issues, even if you send like full video with everything, but obviously then it would be sending a lot of tokens. So now let's start describing what is really being done step by step. I guess today we will be able to describe the step 1. So at first we simply load the video from a disk, and then we execute the command which is trying to calculate how many bytes there are. How many bytes there are is necessary because here we are using Gemini Files API. So if we want to pass to Gemini model through API some video or audio, and it's bigger, in case of YouTube video obviously it's pretty big, like hundreds of megabytes, then you have to use Files API. And in case of Files API, here you have to create authorization as per Google AI Studio, where you have API key, so you are sending your API key as part of the request. But in case of N8N, you can nicely hide it like it's visible here. We can discuss that later, but it's pretty well documented how to do it, so now I won't be opening to show you my API key. And if we send it and we send these parameters, then it's like we are just beginning the upload. We are just like letting know the Gemini Files API we want to upload a huge file, how it's named and so on. After this is done, we will get back a link, and we will use this link to start the upload. Here, usually if we want to pass the binary, which is quite huge, through the node, and it's not, I mean, the one node is not neighboring with the other, there is an issue. Maybe it's fixed in the latest version, but if it's not fixed and you need to get the binary, you can use this code block and hack it like that. So then this upload is directly getting the data, as it's mentioned here, the binary file data. The binary file is the file that we've loaded from the disk, which means it's our huge video. And then here we simply send the bytes of the video into upload, which we initiated here, and the upload would automatically happen. When the upload is finished, then it takes some time before the Files API for Gemini processes it. The processing means that currently it samples the video and audio using 1 frame per second, and it will automatically prepare and translate the video and audio and whatever else you send there into tokens. So it takes a minute or two. And then here we are checking for the status, and when the status changes into processed, I believe, let's check here inside active. So it will be processing, and then when it's finished it will be active. So then what we do, we simply store this into the Baserow. Baserow, if you remember, is that database that we run locally inside the Docker. So we create a table there and database, and then we store it. Then if I show you how it looks like, so if we go into Baserow, let me open it and let's see. So inside Baserow you can then create database like that. Now I'll just make it bigger, and then you create columns, and then you can simply store the data. So it then looks like this. Because when you store the data, then you know what you were doing previously, and you can also use it inside the flow to continue. If, for example, something fails, then you automatically load all the data from database, and then you continue from there. So we store all the values into the Baserow, and as you can see in step 1b, we load these data from the Baserow. So we are loading from the same table YouTube videos. We are loading just the one which has status, which contains processing. So this will automatically load all these data from Baserow, and when we have these data from Baserow, then what we are doing here, we are deciding if we want to upload directly just the sound. So why do we do that? There are two options how to send something into Gemini when you want to process video or audio. The first way is to use Files API. This is used for video or audio which is bigger than 20 megabytes, and you have limited options how to change the pre-processing and post-processing of the video. But then you can use it inside any following calls into Gemini or Gemini models. In case of sending it directly, we simply send it inside the request as base64 encoded, and then we have much more ability how to influence it. In case of weaker model, which is Gemini Flash, it usually is a good idea to send it only audio, because at first we are limiting the size of the request, but also in case of Gemini Flash, we are also decreasing the probability that the model would be confused with all the video tokens. So if we opt for direct upload, then what we do, we load the video, the same YouTube video that we stored, which was done inside the step here. Then we upload the video into MinIO, which is like S3 bucket, and the S3 bucket would give us then URL, and then we use this URL to get just MP3 audio using No-Code Architects Toolkit. So it will just take the audio from a video, and again it will automatically upload it into S3, and when we have it inside S3, then we can use only that audio, which is exactly what we are doing. So we will take from S3 MinIO through this HTTP request the MP3 audio, we will output it as data, and then we will upload it into Baserow. Baserow is our storage, and then we simply update the Baserow. And when this is done, then inside the Baserow itself, and I'll again just make it bigger to show you, and then inside Baserow itself, it will be stored here inside MP3 audio, and then we can even play it. Currently I don't have any here, but it's simply stored inside MP3 audio, and then we can use it. And for now, this is more than enough, because now what we did, we learned that in case of Google Gemini, they have something called Files API, which we can use to upload huge audios or videos, and they are automatically processed, and then we can use them inside queries into Gemini model. We also learned that in case of Flash, we have 500 requests for free. In case of Gemini Pro, there are some requests for free, but unfortunately it's not mentioned, and it's very limited. It's like 5 or 10 per day. And then we also learned how we can use all these tools that we've mentioned. So here we are using N8N, then we are combining the N8N with Baserow to store data, then we can load the data, so even if our workflow fails, then we can load the data and continue. Then we also learned that if we want to share the huge or big data in between applications, we can use MinIO S3 buckets, and then we can use No-Code Architect if we want to manipulate audio, video, or directly call remotely through API FFmpeg. And FFmpeg is like super powerful tool if you know how to use it. And then we also learned that we can upload some basic things into Baserow, but usually it makes sense to upload just small things. If you want to upload something huge, then it's better to just store the URL inside S3 bucket of MinIO. And in next video, we will go into generating SRT files, then describing the video, and then uploading all this into YouTube in fully automated way. So for now, that's more than enough. And I'm only left with last one thing, and that's to wish you to have the most amazing day, or the most amazing rest of the day that you can have, and looking forward to seeing with you in the near future. So bye for now.